afternoon, welcome back to Football League or TV. It's time for the latest EFL midweek review show. I'm your host, George Dagless, and joining me this afternoon are Toby Wilding and Billy Mulley. Toby, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Again, another eventful round of fixtures, wasn't it, last night? So plenty of good stuff to get talking about over the course of the show.
Yep, certainly some good games to reflect on this afternoon. Billy, how are you getting on?
Yeah, all good, thank you. As Toby says, some cracking games across all three EFL divisions. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting involved and speaking about them.
Good stuff. EFL fans, let us know what game were you at last night? What game did you see? We're across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter for the next 20 or so minutes. Let's get going. We'll start as ever in the Championship and we'll go to Bramall Lane where Sheffield United beat Middlesbrough 4-1. Toby, we'll talk Blades first of all. Really impressive performance from Paul Heckingbottom's men, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, against a side who come into this a genuine playoff rival for Sheffield United, that was a real sort of marker, a real statement of intent for them, and responding from sort of that huge disappointment of the late equaliser they conceded to Forest on Friday. That was just a perfect sort of reaction to that, because that will have been tough to take again. Missing out on the chance to put some points into another top six rival, and that didn't happen for them in pretty dramatic circumstances. This time around it did, and the nature of that sort of scoreline as well, that is a real marker that has been sent out there to the rest of the Championship. And you got that range of goal scorers, four goals, four scorers. Morgan Gibbs-White, I mean, that was an absolute piece of brilliance from him, wasn't it, for the fourth? And I think when you've got players like him who can do things like that, you're always in with a shot. I mean, I think I've said before, it still surprises me that Wolves were willing to let him go out on loan again this season, and Sheffield United are really reaping the benefits of that. And if they carry on playing as they did last night, then it's going to be really hard to sort of see who might be able to stop them. And that should mean that if they do, as it looks like they might, claim a top six place, they're going to be going into those playoffs with a huge amount of confidence and momentum.
As for Middlesbrough, Billy, look at their last few results. Beat Luton, obviously, at the weekend. Lost to Sheffield United last night. Got Millwall up next. It's quite an important period of matches for them at the moment, against playoff rivals. They need to bounce back from that defeat last night, don't they?
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. Stark contrast to sort of recent form, although you could probably argue that home form and away form for Middlesbrough has sort of been polar opposite in recent weeks. At home, they feel that they can beat anybody, as they displayed in the Cup, and then obviously beating another playoff rival in Luton as well. So, yeah, it's their away form that definitely needs to be checked and to be altered if they are to be genuine promotion rivals this season. I think it's now 6 of their last 11 come away from home as well. So it's definitely something they do need to correct. But yeah, I think looking at the Middlesbrough comments, looking at Middlesbrough fans reacting after the game, it was a poor performance. 4-1 scoreline was very deserving. Sheffield United were better all evening, and it's disappointing coming into sort of the crunch end of the season. As I said, there was so much confidence within that Middlesbrough camp, and I know it's not going to immediately be sucked out of them, but yeah, it's going to be a massive blow in the context of this playoff race. It wasn't the best return to Bramall Lane for Chris Wilder. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to this, because we've seen under Wilder they do tend to respond really well, but it's just whether they can pick themselves up and start winning away. I think that's the main takeaway.
Yep, certainly something Chris Wilder will want to see from his team in the final few weeks of the season. Moving away from that game, let's talk Coventry's 1-0 defeat at home to Luton Town next. Toby, let's talk Coventry first of all. They're 6 points outside the top six now. How do you assess their playoff hopes? A couple of defeats on the spin now for them, and obviously a loss against the Luton team that is firmly in the playoff picture themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously going to be frustrating. That's a bit of a not an easy opportunity by any stretch, but it was a missed opportunity to put some points into a playoff rival and really sort of kickstart Coventry's own push for the top six again. But I don't think it's too catastrophic at this moment in time. I mean, I'm looking at the fixtures coming up. You know, they've got the likes of Sheffield United, Hull, Derby, Blackburn and Forest. So you've got a mix there of teams who on paper are down at the wrong end of the table, struggling, that Coventry can and probably Matt will be targeting for 3 points. And, you know, sides who are also in that playoff place who, if they can get wins there, then they're right back into the picture. So at the moment, I don't think Coventry are out of this by any stretch if they can sort of start to click again after, you know, it's been a bit of a stop-start last few months for Coventry, well, last few weeks, which every club seems to be going through at some point or another this season. So, yeah, as I say, not a bad situation. And even if they were to sort of drop away, you've got to think this is only their second season back in the Championship. You know, last season was sort of, you know, it was all just about making sure they avoided relegation. They managed to get themselves over the line and do that. And now this season, even if, you know, they don't quite make the top six, they've still built on that in terms of, you know, getting themselves into that sort of playoff picture for a good chunk of the season. So I do think that can still be looked upon as progress for Mark Robins and his team.
Billy, obviously a good night for your team and the travelling Luton fans. You were there too. What did you make of the performance from the Hatters?
Not very good again. It sounds weird saying that, but definitely the first half we did struggle a lot. Coventry press high, and I think that was something that we tend to try and impose on teams, having it done to us. And sort of there was mistakes creeping in. Pelly Ruddock, Jordan Clark and Luke Berry haven't played much football in recent weeks, and they were tasked with being the midfield three with a fair few absentees and sort of an injury crisis within the goalkeeping department as well. But, you know, it's a team that have been plagued with injuries in recent weeks, but they've managed to go out and win all 3 points in a pivotal game against a playoff rival. I think a lot of credit has to go to Luton in terms of their second half performance, in terms of seeing the game out, in terms of Elijah Adebayo taking that one chance that they were presented with. And I think Coventry didn't really do too much in terms of creation of chances, but they did play some good football. It's quite hard to assess their performance because of that reason. But yeah, overall, a massive night for Luton. I was saying to Toby off air that to remember the last time Luton played very well for the entire 90 minutes, you'd have to go a long way back, because they're showing quality and glimpses at the moment, and that's proven to be enough. And should they get their full strength squad back, then yeah, it's an exciting prospect.
It certainly is for Luton. All about getting results when you're not playing well as well. That'll be a good sign for the Hatters. Another Championship game to talk about: Swansea's 5-1 defeat at home to Fulham. Toby, let's talk about the Swans first of all. Probably, you know, a result that I'd say largely sums up their season. Really, they've been inconsistent at times this year. They beat West Brom and Coventry ahead of this game, and then have been tonked. Although, in fairness, a fair few sides have been on the end of such hidings this year from Fulham. Swansea, probably a team that look like they're going to finish mid-table. Now, what do you think they're going to be able to take from this campaign, though, when all's said and done?
I think it was this campaign as a whole was probably a bit of a laying the foundations sort of season for Swansea. You know, we had the change of manager over the summer, and that with it brought a quite radically different playing style. It seemed for Swansea under Russell Martin, much more sort of possession-based, free-flowing football. So, you know, that is always going to take time to adapt to. And I think we have seen that from Swansea. And we have certainly seen in glimpses this season that going forward in the future, if they can, you know, sort of keep the right members of their squad there and, you know, bring the right players in, then they've got certainly a foundation to build on, which I would imagine, given the sort of size of those changes, is what they were hoping for from this season. With regards to that Fulham defeat last night, as you say, I don't think there's a great deal of shame in that when you look at some of the margins Fulham have beaten other teams by this season. And you've also got to consider the fact that Swansea were holding Fulham to a 0-0 until Ryan Manning was sent off just before half-time. So obviously that has really put them up against it as well. They've got the issue now a bit with his suspension that's going to be coming up, with that being his second red card as well in not too long. I think it was only last month he was sent off against Blackburn as well. So, you know, that's something they've got to deal with now. But yeah, it's not a terrible situation for Swansea. It's not like they were losing by that sort of scoreline to a team at a similar level to them. Fulham have just been pretty much a class apart for most of the season. So I still think there's sort of reasons for optimism as a whole for Swansea, despite what happened last night.
Billy, as for Fulham, there's not a lot more to say, is there, that hasn't already been said about them this season? They're 14 points clear. Yes, Bournemouth have a couple of games in hand, but 14 points clear, 89 goals scored so far in the league this season. Another big win. I guess one thing you could perhaps talk about that we haven't mentioned too much is the performance of Nico Williams. Signed in January, scored a couple of goals, some eye-catching finishes as well, and he looks a player that's relishing his opportunity at Craven Cottage.
Yeah, I think looking at the first half of the season, if there was any slight concern about the squad, I think it was the right back area. So seeing Nico Williams coming in, proving himself already, getting on the score sheet, one of them was just an absolute cracker of a strike. And yeah, it's really good to see a player that, promises to be an excellent player. I think it's a really important stage of his development at Fulham. And sort of the bridging the gap from to top end of the Championship to what will be playing for Liverpool in the future. I think that's been a very important step so far, and I think even when they lost to Huddersfield 2-1, he was sort of a rare bright spark for them that day. So to see him now reaping the rewards with everybody on song, I think he definitely deserves it. And yeah, as we say, it appears that there's just a spark with Fulham. That, as Toby was saying, it was that red card. As soon as something like that happens, then they just prove to be very, very devastating. I think it was a similar story when they played against Blackburn. I think it was a red card, and I think that changed the complex of the game. And again, it's just a flick of a switch with Fulham, and they're gone really. And that's been the story all season. They've at times they've competed well. Other teams have come and played some very good football against them, vice versa. And it's just that flick of a switch that just changes the entire complex of the game. And I felt that was something again that happened last night. And as you say, 89 goals in 35 games. It's just an incredible return.
Certainly another impressive attack performance from Fulham in the end. GCFFC's got in touch on YouTube. Swansea game turned on the sending off, as you said, Billy. Early second half, Mitrovic goal. Swansea have had 4 players sent off this year since January. Russell Martin will be looking for his players to try and address that. One final game to talk about in the Championship, that's Blackburn's draw with Millwall. 0-0 it finished at Ewood Park. Toby, obviously you're of a Blackburn Rovers persuasion, so we'll talk about them first of all. Millwall come into this game in really good form, but you look at the way the match went and you might feel, I'd imagine, that Blackburn probably should have potentially won the game.
Yeah, with the chances that went their way, yeah, absolutely. I know you had the Joe Rankin Costello 1-on-1, the John Buckley effort off the post. I think looking at the stats, Millwall didn't have a single shot across the course of the 90 minutes. And so when you consider that, it does sort of, it seems like a missed opportunity. Coming into this game, sort of Rovers were obviously stuttering with just the 1 win in 7. Meanwhile, Millwall, with the 5 straight wins against some of those in and around that playoff picture, you would probably have said I would have taken a point as a Blackburn fan coming into that, but certainly not the way the game panned out. And I think it's one of them that for me perhaps highlights the question mark over the decision not to bring in another centre forward in the January transfer window, because that's now just 3 goals in 12 league games since the turn of the year for Blackburn. And as I say, there were some huge chances, not for the first time in that sort of period, where Rovers missed a lot of opportunities to really put the game to bed and pick up those points. And you do wonder how different things might have been had they had a goal scorer there to get on the end of those chances. And we could be talking about a very different situation for Blackburn with regards to the promotion race. So I think that is maybe something you sort of question the decision making on, despite the fact that the club have got a lot of things right this season. And of course, as I say that, there are still reasons to be positive. It's still not a bad point against the Millwall side, and the performances are still there. Obviously Fulham at the weekend was below par, but Millwall, and then before that the QPR win and the Sheffield United game, the other 3 in their last run of four fixtures, Rovers will feel that on the balance of the performance, they could have taken 3 wins from those against 3 teams in and around that playoff picture with them. It was only the 1 win as it is, but still, you know, that they know that if they can start to find that finishing touch in front of goal, they have this quality clearly to sort of go and cause teams a lot of problems and you know, get those wins again. And so that they're far from out of the playoff race. And I think as well, you know, that point last night takes them above last season's tally for the whole of the campaign. So that sort of shows how much they have improved in such a short space of time from 12 months ago, and also now mathematically means that relegation can't happen for Rovers this season. So, you know, that again, it's just a sign that this team, obviously, that there's frustrations and there's staggers at the minute, but still overall a positive season, and that is probably a reminder of that in both senses, like what happened last night.
As for Millwall, Billy, they'll probably take the point, won't they? As Toby mentioned, no shots, none on target, just no shots at all. You know, keeps their unbeaten run going at least, and as we mentioned, a big game against Middlesbrough this weekend where they'll be looking to try and get back the winning ways as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's been the home form really that's carried Millwall again this season. Gary Rowett highlighting that, saying away form has to improve, and I know that they haven't taken a single shot, and they've got the likes of Jed Wallace and, you know, the informed Tyler Bury on the pitch, but at the same time, it's an away point against, as we know, a Blackburn side who may not be picking up the points at a rate that we've come to expect this season, but the performances still are there. As Toby says, it's been, you know, a while since, bar the Fulham game, it's been a while since a below par performance has been put in. So in that respect, it's never going to be easy to travel to Blackburn, and I think that's something that Millwall and Gary Rowett especially will take big credit for. It could be a massive point in the complex of things, and you know, if they keep winning games at home and drawing away, it'd be a very good season for them. So yeah, I'm sure there's disappointment that they weren't more of an attacking threat, but ultimately it's the point that matters. And I think another key takeaway from this is Dan Ballard. He's come back into the side after a knee injury, and then he's been taken off after 45 minutes with what appeared to be, I think it was a hamstring injury or a groin injury. So yeah, I think his fitness could be key as well. They've been dealt themselves a fair few injuries this season, and you know, a player with sort of the athletic capabilities that Ballard has, he's a real good ball progressor as well. It's hoping that these players are going to continue to be available, especially in, you know, this congested fixture list that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, Mill will probably take that point a lot more than Blackburn will in the Championship last night. Right, time to move to League One. Just the one game we're going to talk about in the 30. That's Sunderland's 3-1 victory over Fleetwood. A late flourish at the Stadium of Light saw a 1-1 draw become a 3-1 victory. Luke O'Nien and Jack Clark amongst the goals late on. Toby, Sunderland appear to be picking up a little bit now under Alex Neil.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we sort of saw the weekend before last, the win at Wigan was a major sort of show of intent from Sunderland against one of those who looked well set for the top two. And, you know, there will probably have been a bit of frustration that they didn't build on that at Charlton at the weekend in a game that they largely dominated and, you know, couldn't get the ball in the back of the net, and that ended up goalless. And that will have been a huge frustration for them. And, you know, sort of a bit of a concern of are we going to start taking these chances? And then obviously going behind at home last night against a side who, when you look at the table, they will have very much been expected to beat. That will have put a lot of pressure on them again. And, you know, there's going to be the concerns there of, oh, is it a case of here we go again for Sunderland? But they responded really well in that second half and made that game their own. And, you know, it puts them right back into the playoff picture. It's 4 unbeaten now. And as well, that goal for Jack Clark, you know, brilliant finishing. What a big moment that could be for him. You know, he's had so many sort of loan spells since he's moved to Tottenham where things just haven't worked out. He hasn't got the chances. And, you know, it's finally sort of seeming like he might be getting those opportunities a bit more at Sunderland, and the fact that he was able to come up with a goal like that is just going to give him a huge lift as well, and just reignites a bit of that belief in him, and it reminds him of just what a good player he has the potential to be. And if he can do that in a Sunderland team that can now push on from this and keep themselves in the top 6 at a very minimum, then that could really be a big moment for him in his career, and also for Sunderland in the next couple of months, if he can, as I say, push on from that and play a part for them in terms of getting them up potentially to the Championship.
As for Fleetwood, Billy, disappointed for them, particularly given they were leading for a while and then looking good for a point for a long time at least as well. They've got games against Burton and Wycombe coming up, but then after that, Doncaster and Crewe. You look at the form table down at the bottom of the League One, no one's in particularly great form at the moment. Fleetwood just probably need to set themselves up, if they can, against Burton and Wycombe for those massive games against Doncaster and Crewe.
Yeah, I think those two, Doncaster and Crewe, are going to be pivotal in terms of their season, in terms of Crewe and Doncaster's season as well. We've seen those sort of teams just outside the relegation zone really, really struggling for form. Wimbledon and Shrewsbury as well were the two sides that have seen those struggles, and it hasn't really picked up. I think Wimbledon's even worse in terms of its 17 games without a win for them, whereas Fleetwood, it's 10 games without a win. But then 3 successive losses now, going into a really, really pivotal period of time. And yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult. And I think what makes yesterday's defeat that little bit harder to take is the fact that they held a 1-goal lead at a Stadium of Light that, it's not the same fortress as it was at the start of the season. I'm sure it will be getting back to those kind of levels, but because of, recent events and a little bit of uprest, it's not the same Stadium of Light at the moment. So yeah, in that respect, I think they could have capitalised on that. But as we said, Jack Clark looked at a really, really good game, a real threat. Watching the highlights back, he was pretty much involved with everything and took his goal very, very well. Gives him bags of confidence, and yeah, a very good result for Sunderland in the end. It wasn't the most convincing displays, but they got the job done. And yeah, as we say with Fleetwood, they do have goal difference to their sides at the moment, but ultimately it's probably these games against Crewe and Doncaster, should they not get too much from Wycombe or Burton, that could prove to be, the final straw in terms of what their season might end up as.
Certainly a big couple of games coming up in the next few weeks for the Cod Army. One final game to talk about on the Midweek Review show here on Football League or TV, and that's in League Two. We're looking at Exeter City 3, Swindon Town 1. Toby, we'll talk the Grecians first of all. It just shows you how tight things are at the upper level of League 2. Exeter started the night below Swindon, and now they've moved up from outside the playoffs to third place.
Yeah, and that does feel like a really sort of significant win for Exeter. They've been on a really good winning run, and then they came into this one having taken just 1 point from the last 2 games against a couple of sides in Bristol Rovers and Mansfield, who are also right in that playoff mix now. So, to sort of respond quickly from that and, get those 3 points on the board and do it against another sort of team who are in that sort of top 7 picture will have been a major boost for Exeter. As you say, it lifts them into the automatic promotion places just on goal difference. And like I say, with it being as tight as it is, there's very sort of little, room for error. One slip up and there's sides there who can pounce and, put the pressure right back on you. So that feels like a really important result for Exeter. And as well, looking at the table now, they've got games in hand on the vast majority of those sides in and around them in that battle for a playoff place. I think Mansfield being the exception there. So, there's a big opportunity now for Exeter if they can sort of kick on from that to really, strengthen their sort of position, certainly in the playoff places, potentially in the automatic promotion spots. And, the fact that they've sort of come out and done that against a playoff rival will give them a great deal of confidence that they can go on and, sort of make a potential promotion place their own now. And, they've been really sort of impressive on their own patch in recent weeks. That's another win at home. So, that sort of shows how important those games are as well. And yeah, there'll be a lot of confidence, I would think, now at Exeter, given how they responded last night.
As for Swindon, Billy, disappointment?
Yeah, that would be the ultimate feeling. As we say, Exeter took that third spot, so third spot was up for grabs for Swindon as well. And everything does remain tight, so they won't be too disheartened. But ultimately, they had a really, really good opportunity there, especially with how good their away record has been this season. I think they've been averaging close to 1.9 points per game away from home soil as well. So in that respect, I know a game against Exeter is always going to be difficult, but backing your own away form, especially when it's that good, I'm sure that will be one that will be quite disappointing for Swindon Town fans to take, especially with the quality in their side we've seen all season, and the fact that it was very convincing. I think Exeter fully deserved to secure all 3 points in terms of their performance. I think reading match reports, it was quite tight for the opening exchanges, but as soon as Exeter scored the goal, it was as if Swindon were deflated, and that really took the sting out of them. A really, really good goal from Jack Payne at the end. I think if that came maybe 5 or 10 minutes earlier, then it would have been, it could have made the game really, really exciting coming into its concluding stages. But yeah, as I say, it's not going to be too disheartening given that they remain so close to that chasing pack, and the fact that you could go from 8th to 3rd in just one game. But as I say, it's the away record and the fact that it's been so strong. I think that's going to be the disappointing part of this game for Swindon.
Certainly will be. Robins fans will be hoping their team can respond in very short order. That's it for Football League World TV for today. We'll be back tomorrow with more shows. Toby, Billy, thanks for joining me this afternoon. Great to get your thoughts on last night's action, or some of last night's action, at least in the EFL. Just before we go, a quick plug for Football League World TV on YouTube. Do subscribe to the channel if you can, and do like this video as well. That would help us all out at Football League World a great deal. Toby, Billy, thanks again for joining me this afternoon, and people at home and wherever you're watching, we'll speak to you very soon.